Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Roundup review. We've got season 2, episode 5 coming at you. We've got a lot of interesting topics to talk to you about tonight. So I'm joined by my constant co-host, as always, Rich. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, hi Aidan. Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me as always.
No, my pleasure, mate. My pleasure. So tonight we're going to kick off. We've got some really interesting stuff to cover. Some of it may be more heavy hitting than others, but it's been quite an interesting week for a lot of reasons. But we'll start off on some more light-hearted notes. And we're actually going to kick off on what was probably the biggest story in terms of like football this week, which is the Carabao Cup final. But I think this is a very simple one for me to talk about because let's hand over to Rich straight away because Rich was actually at the game.
Yeah, I was very fortunate enough to be offered a ticket by my father-in-law. So I got to go to the game, which is fantastic. I'd never been to a cup final before. Being a Southampton fan, as you can appreciate, there's not many of them that come around. So it was absolutely fantastic. And firstly, the first thing I want to say is the crowd, the fans were phenomenal, whether they were Chelsea or Liverpool. The moment I stepped off that train at the tube station, they were singing, they were full voice, and it was just an absolutely unbelievable atmosphere. The game itself, I mean, it's been described as probably one of the most entertaining nil-nil games.
I don't think you can argue that.
You really can't. It had a little bit of everything. I was sat in the Chelsea end. My father-in-law is a Chelsea fan, so I was a blue for the day. And I'll be honest, my knees were hurting towards the end from having to stand up and sit down so much for the amount of goals chalked offside. But yeah, an absolutely great game. Fantastic to see two absolute juggernauts of world football just, slugging it out. And it really was anyone's game throughout the entire thing. It was very much end to end, a lot of hard fighting, a lot of hard battling. You'd say that probably Liverpool edged it towards the end. Yeah. However, I think in extra time, Chelsea, I think, were a little bit on top there, which is interesting. I guess we'll get to some of the decisions Tuchel made a little bit later on, but yeah, absolutely phenomenal game. And the atmosphere was absolutely amazing. Obviously, a nice little moment of clapping for Ukraine at the start of the game.
Absolutely.
With the Liverpool fans singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," which was an absolutely fantastic touch. And quite often we as fans get to enjoy the songs of our clubs. I think in that moment, I really got to experience that. Liverpool, "You'll Never Walk Alone," and honestly, it brings goosebumps. It's one of those great chants that just they just symbolise Liverpool, and it was absolutely fantastic.
No, and it was it from watching it at home and not being in a great seat at the pitch side. Yeah, it was a great 0-0 as everyone's saying, and it had a bit of everything. Apart from potentially in full time a goal or maybe some kind of controversy in terms of cards and stuff. I kind of wanted to kick off. Just by saying, actually, I think the referees had a really good game, and that really helped the final. I think lots of decisions were made, and most of them were correct, and that really and not giving people cards so early. That obviously, if they should have been carded, they should have been, but they didn't. And some of the challenges kind of saved the yellows a bit, and it gave a bit of fuel to that game, and really gave it that really competitive edge, which you totally want from a final because you wanted, as you said, two of the best teams in the world slogging it out. But actually, I wanted to start with, I guess, Chelsea because you kind of alluded to at the end. Liverpool kind of nicked it at the end. Chelsea maybe had some chances next time, but for me, Chelsea had the opportunities to kill this game off early, and that's what they kind of rued their misses as we got later on. I think we can all agree that Kai Havertz and Mason Mount had a plethora of chances between them, and yes, some of them were offside, but they hit the post a few times, they missed at the near post a few times. They had so many good opportunities that kind of was, you're thinking this might not be their day in front of goal, and obviously it turned out not to be at the end. But I mean, is there any particular decisions you want to talk about? I know there's a few down on my list, but
yeah, I will say firstly that Mason Mount miss, especially. I mean, we all thought it went in.
Yeah,
we all thought it was a goal. And the thing is, obviously, when you're in the stadium watching the game live, you don't have the benefit of different camera angles. Or replays, but we were shocked. I mean, there was no way that wasn't going in. So, the fact he missed that was absolutely outrageous. And I'd also like to mention Mendy pulled off a phenomenal double save.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah, and that as well. I thought we all thought that was in as well. So, we had a really good position where we were sat. So we were sat row 13. So we were literally as 12 rows in front of us to the pitch on the halfway line. Brilliant view of either side. Yeah, it was absolutely perfect. So yeah, one refereeing decision I might disagree slightly with you on is the foul. What should have been, in my opinion, a foul on Chalobah.
Mm-hmm.
The high studs.
Yeah.
I believe it was Fabinho. Now, I didn't get the benefit of seeing a replay of that during the game, but I definitely thought there was a foul in there. During the game, and having seen that, I mean, obviously there's a couple of arguments for and against, but having seen that that after the game, I don't understand how that wasn't
given,
at least checked at VAR, because that it's serious foul play. And I get that they're both coming in with high legs. The difference is Chalobah isn't going directly at Fabinho. And Fabinho catched him really high up in the thigh as well, and it required 6 stitches. So I don't know how. I don't know why that's not checked by VAR. I think that if that's a Premier League game, it's a red card. The only thing I can think of is maybe because it's a cup final, they're a little bit more hesitant to give a straight red. But in this case, didn't even get a free kick. So I'm not quite sure what was going on with that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it had been again, if it was reviewed, maybe it would have been overturned to red. I think, absolutely, it should have been given as a foul regardless, and a yellow. I wasn't, my thing at the beginning was most of the goal decisions were kind of correct by the referee, but overall they had a pretty good game. But yeah, no, I do agree with that. But we've talked about that many times. It's VAR picking up on stuff that or not picking up on stuff that it should, and then picking up on stuff that it shouldn't. That's so marginal. That's what happens. So we'll get on some of the goals that were kind of disallowed. So obviously the one I'm going to go for, which is instantly the one in my mind, the Lukaku one was so close, and I mean so close. It's almost like, I know what people are going to say, and you can argue for either side whether it should be or shouldn't be. But for me, that was the one I thought that was the goal, and I was like, I thought he'd nicked it after everything that's happened with the last couple of games he's had, and I just think even looking back on VAR, it's incredibly close, and if they'd given it, you could have seen why they would have given it.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the rules of VAR, because realistically, it should be, is it a clear and obvious error? And that Lukaku one wasn't. And it's interesting because, like I've mentioned, in the stadium, you don't get the benefit of replays. And actually, every single offside goal, I don't think any of them were specifically very, very clear. In the stadium, you kind of you see things live and as they happen, and you're not always in line with the play as well. So generally, we were, every single time we were on our feet, either celebrating or, in Liverpool's case, for that offside goal, we kind of sat there silent. We were sure that it was a goal. Until the big boards come up with VAR.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I was going to ask. You kind of answered one of my questions for you, which was going to be, did that affect the mood of the crowd? But I guess because it's a cup final and it was so close, you did celebrate. Like even Tuchel, they showed so many replays of him celebrating and then literally stopping instantly and being like, "Oh my god!" Like
what? So what was quite funny. So Liverpool obviously scored the first goal, and at that time, the Liverpool side of the stadium erupted. There was flares going off, and for a good 10-20 seconds they were cheering. You had the fan, like we were sat probably about 3 seats away from the divider between the fans, so we could see the Liverpool fans very, very close, and they were obviously jeering and throwing a few signs up at the Chelsea fans. And actually, there was a Liverpool fan sat in with the Chelsea fans of us, which caused a little bit of a punch-up and a bit of a fight.
Oh, dear.
Which wasn't great. And the worst thing was he had his kid with him as well. So
great example.
So he got up, started cheering, got punched in the face by a Chelsea fan. And then stewards come and escorted him away, his kid in tears. So, say what you like about that, but in my book, that's bad parenting. But then the boards, the big screens in the Wembley Stadium come up with VAR checking for offside. Liverpool fans go quiet.
Yeah.
Chelsea fans start
Cheer.
chanting VAR, VAR,
Mm-hmm.
and it's ruled offside. And then you've got complete flip reverse where the Liverpool fans are sat there silent, and the Chelsea fans are cheering and jeering and throwing up signs and everything. So it's I don't know whether that's just because it's a cup final.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the games I've watched Southampton this season, I think you have one VAR decision in there, which was an offside for them, I believe.
Yeah.
It might have been Leeds, if I remember rightly. So they had a goal disallowed for offside, and it was obviously a different experience because I hadn't had that cheering and then it being taken away sort of thing. So I imagine that does spoil the mood. And again, this weekend, I'm not a Chelsea fan, I'm not a Liverpool fan. So for me, it was very much I'll jump and cheer with the Chelsea fans because I'm sat with them, but it was quite neutral. I didn't really have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just about watching a great contest, and I think they did their best to get at each other. As you can see, there was a lot of offside goals.
Yeah.
But that Lukaku one, especially,
Yeah, man.
the thing is, when you get down to that level of difference,
yeah,
you can really just manipulate the angles to make it look like whatever you want. And I think that's the case with this one. In my opinion, it's too close to overrule.
Yeah, and I think we're in agreement on that. I think from a neutral of not supporting either team as well. Like if I was to give a goal, and I think most people would love to see a goal preferred in full time by full time, sorry, then you think that would be the one, and it was so marginal that I just think it was a bit unfair on them. There was an interesting one where it was one of the corner or the free kick, and then there was interference from the defender. I was actually really happy because for once there was some consistency, because we had Rafa Varane scored a goal, which would have been his first United goal a couple of weeks back, and Harry Maguire did the same thing and kind of held the guy back and stopped them, and it was given offside. So I'm glad to see that there was some consistency for once in that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it was very good overall. I think we can get on to the we'll get on to the main bits at the end. So obviously it went to extra time, and then it went to penalties. Interesting choice. We'll start with the substitution in the whatever was 119th minute.
So I'll start with this, and I will say that I think that was the most stupid decision that Tuchel could make in that situation. Now, I think for most of extra time, Chelsea were in ascendancy. Mm-hmm. Chelsea were on top. And I think that an extra pair of fresh legs on the pitch at the start of extra time would have done a world of good. Might possibly have even been the difference. The other thing that I know we spoke about it in our little group chat is that I think Lukaku just doesn't bother running after a ball. So a lot of the pressing that we saw had slipped off. And I think that on a different day, that could have been very detrimental to Chelsea. So the other part of this is I know that Kepa has done really well in finals before and in penalty shootouts before. I get that.
Yep.
Mendy had a blinder though.
Yeah, that's the issue that I have.
He played absolutely fantastic. In fact, he's been fantastic pretty much all season. Mm-hmm. He had a great AFCON, very important in the penalties in AFCON, which by the way there was an awful lot of. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that decision cost Chelsea. I'll be honest. I'll be really, really honest. And as we all know, 10-10 in penalties.
Great
the
penalties.
Keepers left to take. Absolutely fantastic penalties.
Great round of pens.
A little special shout out for Van Dijk as well. Kepa stood to his right.
Didn't him anyway.
And Van Dijk called his bluff, cool as ice.
Quite like Fabinho straight down the mid as well.
Oh, it's cheeky, wasn't it? It was audacious. I mean, yeah, all fantastic penalties, and especially Kelleher's.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I'd just seen that penalty and didn't know who took it, I'd think a striker took that, because that was well hit.
And realistically, if you're getting down to centre backs and you're getting down to keepers, like, it's going to happen, and it is almost a reverse of the Balotelli "why always me." It's why always Kepa for all the wrong reasons, especially in the news at the moment. And I feel bad for him in a sense, because he has been slowly building himself back up after some disastrous games, and obviously the final where he refused to come off. So he was building up some bad, some good press after the bad stuff that had happened. I think quickly for me on the subs, I think I actually really liked the earlier subs. For me, I know Lukaku didn't run a huge amount, but I thought he looked really dangerous up top. I actually think Werner and Lukaku looked really good together again in that front two, working for it, with Werner being the workhorse. So I liked that from Tuchel. But yeah, I agree. I agree with the same thing as with you for the Kepa one. I don't care if he saved 4 penalties this season. I understand on paper that looks good, and stats that looks good. But when you've got Mendy, who's been such an incredible keeper for all this season. He's had the odd game where he's done a little wild things, but most of the time he's been so solid. And he's also had such an incredible final to be taken off and not even give him the chance. Like, penalties is mostly about luck, and they've got the data on which player's going which way, and they've looked at that. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You pick a way and you pick another way, and it's tough luck, and it's a crazy way to go. Fair play to all the penalty takers that took it. They all had the stones to do it, and they all put some great pens away. We were very entertained by that. And it is what it is, and it's going to go down as a Tuchel and a Kepa error, because you can't put it all on Kepa. It has to be a Tuchel thing as well, where he's made that decision.
It's 100% Tuchel's error here. Kepa's just done what he's told, really.
Yeah.
And you can see it, you can understand why he's done it, but I just think that's such a negative way of doing it.
Yeah,
especially when at the start of extra time you've got to be fancying yourself to go on and win the game in the next half an hour. At that point, Tuchel must have even before the game said that if it goes to penalties we're going to do this swap, and I just think that's such a negative mindset, and not one that I would expect from a Chelsea team.
Yeah, I agree. But that's the way it was. They scored. Kepa did a Ramos and sent his pen to the moon. And it finished with Liverpool winning on penalties. Great for Kepa. The exact opposite from the managers, where he's been shown faith sticking goal for the entire of the cup and keeping Alisson out. And he's been rewarded, and Tuchel mixing around with the keepers hasn't worked out for him. So that's Liverpool's 9th League Cup win. So and that's obviously the start of them with the potential quadruple on the cards for them. Very unlikely going to happen, but could be the start of them kicking off. So from a non-biased Community FC person, we'll say well done Liverpool. From a United fan, obviously not. But I think we'll leave it there and move on to the next subject. So that was really good, but I'm glad you had a great time, and obviously very jealous that you got to enjoy the game.
We might try and share some videos.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I took as well.
Might try and do a cheeky little upload of some footage which you kindly got for us when you went there. So the next one we're going to go on to is another kind of debate. We won't spend too long on this one, because I think it's very obvious. More negative, and I really hate something that's come out of the press today about it. So that's why I want to talk about it the most. But this is going to be talking about the City versus Everton game. Obviously, it happened on the weekend, and the match was basically all about one decision, wasn't it? City scored really late on, and they had a good game, but Everton also, considering how they've been doing recently, had a really good game, and we're looking to try and hold on to some really important points. And obviously the thing we're alluding to is the penalty decision that was not given for Everton. Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, it's a stonewall penalty. Whichever way you shake it, it's a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
This is the problem, right? And I mean, I've been saying this for bloody years, because I've always felt that Southampton especially have been victim to officiating, which might be a little bit dubious.
Mm-hmm.
When stuff like this happens, how can you not question the how fair our referees are?
Mm-hmm.
How can you not say, well, there's corruption there? Because this just looks like an agenda. We've had throughout this season so far, all of the 50-50 VAR checks are pretty much gone Man City's side. Same for last season before, Liverpool got everything. Going back even further, there was a time where United got everything. Before that, Arsenal got everything. And it just seems like there's an agenda here. And I think now what's happening, especially with VAR, is that it's being highlighted to more and more people. There is no way, any way you shape it, that does not come off his arm.
Yeah, 100%.
Whatever angle you look at, it comes off his arm.
There's
You
no
can't justify
feasible way. Yeah, exactly. Like no matter what you do, nobody, I don't care if you're a City fan, if you are telling me, if you're a City fan listening to this or watching this, and you're telling me that's not a handball, it's the most biased thing you've ever heard. Anyone who knows football will tell you that.
Yeah. It's not, his arm's not in a natural position. It's not like it's hit his arm when it's down by his sides. It's not ricocheted off of anyone and come directly at the player's arm. The player has brought his arm up and forward to control the ball. It's a stonewall penalty.
Yeah.
And the fact that it hasn't been given is absolutely shocking. And quite rightly so. Frank Lampard was not a happy boy. Yeah. Ashley Cole, not a happy boy. Ashley Cole, yellow card after the game. From him.
I've got one of Frank's quotes here because I thought it'd be interesting to read out. He said quite a lot of things, but one of the ones he said was, "We've lost a point because of a professional who can't do his job right. It's so incompetent to get it wrong." Lampard said following the game at Goodison. And the thing about it is, right, and we'll get on to my last statement in a minute from something that came out today, but the problem I have is that you hate to see these mess ups anyway, because it happens a lot, right? But when it's so clear and obvious, it takes that extra step above and becomes even more irritating. But take another step above that for two different reasons. One, that could be a title deciding decision if it gets close. I know we said last week you think City will win the league. I still do, but that could be the thing that helps them. You just don't know. But two, Everton are also in a relegation battle, whether they like to admit it or not at the moment, and that could have a massive detrimental effect on their campaign to stay in the Premier League as well. So it could be a huge decider at the top or the bottom of the table, and I just think that it's just unacceptable when it's so blindingly obvious. I understand when sometimes VAR is frustrating as a fan, but I understand sometimes when it's really close or this or that happens. But when it's just literally like there is no other decision, it's literally handball, I don't understand. And yeah, you're right, it does make you question the agenda. The next thing I want to get onto, and it was kind of the last thing, which today has made my blood boil a bit more into for a neutral fan of VAR. Obviously, I'd like to see City drop points as well on a non-biased level. But so today, it's literally come out. So Everton today have received an apology from the head of the professional referees body, Mike Riley, after they were denied a penalty in the 1-0 defeat by City. So they've now basically come out and gone, we were wrong. Problem is, they're not doing anything about that, saying that we were wrong. So it's not going to be overturned. Now, before I get to you, I just wanted to point out the same kind of thing, and it's why it really winds me up, and this is happening in sport at the moment. When we're getting into a new age of sport where you can review things and stuff still isn't done about it, stuff needs to be done in hindsight if it's completely wrong. And I know that's really hard for a fan to take. But for example, if you'll let me quickly divert to a different sport. So you look at the F1, for example, at the end of last season, the last race, obviously the title was decided by a mistake. The person who's made the mistake has been let go from that position. They've come out and said it was wrong and said that he was wrong on two accounts. So both ways, Hamilton would have won and Verstappen wouldn't have. But Mercedes had their lawyers, they had their case afterwards, but nothing got overturned and nothing will be overturned now, even though they fully admitted what they did was wrong. And it's just like, I don't understand how you can, as a board, come out and you can apologise, but now they've come out and said it's wrong, but the points aren't going to change for this match now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also fuming for a slightly different reason, and that is throughout a lot of the last season, we were absolutely screwed over by refereeing decisions. Now you know this because at the time I was very vocal with you about a lot of it, and actually some of the biggest came in that where we got absolutely trounced 9-0 by United.
Yeah.
That first red card absolutely should be a red card, deserved to go. But we also had the second red against Bednarek. Martial dived. Martial admitted he dived, but at that point I think it was 6-0. Okay, and if I think Bednarek stays on the pitch, I think it maybe stays at 6-0.
Yeah.
Which it's not a bad decision, but it's fairly regular to see teams getting smashed 6-0. I mean, Leeds doing it for fun these days. But Bednarek sent off, also, and a penalty is given. So the other thing here is, where is double jeopardy? Because as far as I'm aware, if a player is fouled, if the last man fouls a player in the box, it's a yellow card and a penalty. but he got a red card and a penalty. And then the week before, and I think that was Mike Dean and maybe Kevin Friend, I think, on VAR. So I think maybe Kevin Friend refereeing, Mike Dean VAR. So the week before that, and also, sorry, Shay Adams had a goal ruled out for offside.
Yeah.
We were wearing black bands in like a memorial kind of vibe, and the black band was offside. So that was given offside. That was at 4-0. You go back to 4-1, you think maybe we can salvage a more respectable scoreline.
Yeah, exactly.
Even at worst case, it's 9-1, which is significantly better than the 9-0 against Leicester. But, at the end of the day, we lost 9-0 and everything went against us. The week before that, we played Aston Villa. It was 1-1, I believe, at the time. And someone had a strike from the edge of the box, and Matty Cash brought his hand up and blocked it on the goal line. Not a penalty.
Yeah.
Not a red card, not a penalty, not a yellow card, nothing. Same referee in pair that was. Kevin Friend, Mike Dean. Okay, both times Ralph has gone out to say something. Both times he's received a fine. Southampton even went as far as requesting that those two never referee us again. In that, throughout that entire period, not once did we receive a apology from the PGMOL. The Bednarek red card was rescinded. We had another red card rescinded earlier on in the season as well last year. Not once did we get a apology for that. Why this? This is what annoys me. I get it, and I'm, I'm Lampard. I'm Everton fan. I'm fuming anyway. Yeah. I get that, but what's changed now? Is it because Lampard, a respected name with a reputation, is coming out and saying these things? Why not when other teams have questioned the legitimacy of some of these referees?
I think you've hit half of it on the head. I think the Lampard thing has something to say with him being new as well, does add an extra spin to that as well. But I agree with what you're saying. But two, I think because it's, again, the title thing and it's City, again, it's going to be a more headline stuff, and that's exactly why it's come out more. But it's just, you hate to see it, and it should never have happened. But I just think that what we've both said, and the fact that it's now the even worse, they've doubled it over by going, oh, sorry, we were wrong, but no, can't do anything about that.
Because what happens if Everton go down by a point?
And this will be the thing. This will be every game now, no matter what happens, every game for City and Liverpool fans, or for Everton and relegation battle teams, that's going to be the thing. That's the difference.
This is very, very similar to was it Aston Villa, where just after Project Restart, the ball crossed the line, but Hawkeye
and that's
wasn't
what kept them up. Yeah.
And that's what kept them up. It's the same vibes on that.
And that's
Everton
the problem.
Much bigger team.
That's the perfect example of what we hope doesn't affect either end of the table this time. Anyway, we could talk about this for hours, but we thought this was a strong point to bring up. And again, if you're a football fan, you know that what we're talking about is exactly right, and how it's not a red card is how it's not a handball is outrageous. So we've got a really quick topic, and then we're going to get on to our kind of final bigger one. So I just really wanted to touch on, I know we've talked about it a few times, but probably will quite a lot this season, because in fact I actually think this is the most interesting part of the whole Premier League at the moment, and it's the relegation battle. It's still absolutely heating up. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of the teams in that zone and what's been happening.
Sure. So I think Newcastle have got enough about them now, to be honest. They're playing well. As much as I'd love to have seen them go down with all that money, I think we're probably going to have to get used to the fact that they're going to be a big team in a couple of years' time with a lot of big players. There are a couple teams that I'm very worried about, and that's not. I think Norwich. I mean, we played them Friday night, and honestly, Angus Gunn played out of his skin. Really, it could have been 5 or 6-0 to us. It was very
better, but realistically, as we said at the beginning of the season, they're finishing bottom of the table, aren't they?
They've just not got the quality, I'm afraid. The likes of Brandon Williams. You won't want to hear it, but he looked absolutely awful on Friday night. Billy Gilmore was a little spark in an otherwise very grey performance there. Watford, see, I want to say Watford have got a little bit about them, but they're just not getting the results. And they've got the teams above them, Burnley and Everton. they've got 2 games in hand on Watford, so that's going to count for so much.
Yeah, Everton. I mean, sorry, Everton. Well, I'm still thinking about Everton from the last topic. Watford, they did well. Again, I'm not going to talk about the game too much because I don't really want to think about it. But Rangnick summed it up perfectly when he's like, "We did everything but score," and it's so true. Like it was just one of those days. We'll move on. But fair play to Watford in that sense of getting another draw against a team where they probably weren't expecting to get anything on the time. But Hodgson's come in, and yet again they've kept another clean sheet, and yet again they've got another draw. So it's awkward to say. They still probably will go down, but they're gonna give it a good go. So that's what's good for them.
Yeah. Burnley next.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think Burnley could do an escape this season. Especially with Weghorst now. Listeners of the podcast will know that Aidan and I are big fans of Weghorst.
I've captained him this week in fantasy league.
Have you actually? That's big.
He hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything so far on the previous game, but he was playing 2 games this week, so it wasn't that much of a risk. But he's playing tonight currently, as we in about 20 minutes. So we will see. That might be recouping because obviously with the Chelsea and Liverpool players out. So, but yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. So I don't know. Whatever happens to Burnley, I think Sean Dyche needs to leave.
I agree. I literally been saying this for years, haven't I? I've said for the last 3 or 4 seasons, he keeps signing contract extensions, keep going. I think he can do a real good job. I really like him as a manager, and I think if they do stay up, it could be a Weghorst, but I think it would be a Sean Dyche special again, where he's just saved them. I'm not sure they will, but it's going to be very close, and they could. But I think, as I said before, he should go for a bigger job, and there'll be a team out there that I think will suit him down to a T. Newcastle, sorry, just touch on them. So they're up to 14th at the moment. Yes, Brentford behind them have got 2 games in hand, but their form's been dropping slowly. So we'll see.
No, they've got 2 games in hand on Brentford.
I thought Brentford had 27. Brentford, wasn't it?
Newcastle 25, Brentford 27.
Oh, there you go. I've misread it. So they're doing even better. And as I said, I don't think Brentford are doing great at the moment either. So Newcastle are escaping that and might not even be as close by the end of the season as people are thinking. And then obviously the last team, as you have mentioned them in this podcast so far about getting absolutely drummed. Do you want to kick off on this?
Yeah, Leeds are in trouble. I mean, it's really like you're all right because it's such an interesting relegation fight this season. Probably the most interesting one I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
It's the first time I don't really give a shit what's happening at the top of the table because the bottom is so exciting. And from a Southampton fan, I'm so happy I'm not involved in it. This season.
A lot of fan base is very like squeaky bum type at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. Usually you've got maybe like 4 teams who are like battling out for it.
Yeah.
This season, realistically, I think you can probably keep Newcastle in there.
Yeah.
I don't think you can count Leicester. Leicester have got 3 or 4 games in hand. And
Everton, Leeds.
From Newcastle down from 20 to 40, there's 8 points in it, which isn't a lot of points, especially when there's a lot of games in hand kicking around. And Leeds, I just think that they are just looking awful. They've just got no cohesion. The last 4 matches, they've conceded like 20 goals in the last like 2 weeks.
A lot. Well, we should probably announce the elephant in the room of why that is and what's changed. Is obviously Bielsa has been sacked from the club. I don't think anyone wasn't expecting it. In a sense, it was kind of when I wasn't maybe expecting it so soon because I'm not sure what's going to happen in terms of the bounce back, but I think every football fan all knows that's why they've been losing so much, because Leeds only had one way to play and it was on the attack and playing the Bielsa way. So it didn't matter if they were 3-0 down. When they got the ball and put it on in the centre, they were trying exactly the same tactic over and over, and 90% of the time that means you're going to get drummed another 3 goals by that team that are doing the same thing to you. So something has to change in that sense. They've still got all the injuries. Phillips is still out, Bamford's still out, as we keep saying. They're gonna. I kind of predicted a couple of episodes ago. I still think they're gonna just make it the same as Brentford and the same as Everton, just potentially. But it's going to be super close. And now they're getting rid of Bielsa and Rafinha and stuff haven't been firing as normal. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford and Leeds have got the 2 worst forms in the league. In the last 5 games, they've drawn 1, lost 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I called it at the start of the season when we saw Brentford start off strong. I said they're not going to maintain this. No. They're going to drop down. People are going to figure out how to play against them, and they won't be able to keep up this level of intensity that they've been playing so far. And we're seeing that now. I honestly think that we could be looking at one of those teams going down.
Could be.
I think that it's interesting because obviously Bielsa's left now, and there's unofficially announced who will be replacing him, Jesse Marsch. Now, I think that might be a premature appointment. If I was Leeds, I would be looking to appoint him maybe in the summer. But let's see what happens now. I think we get someone like Big Sam in on a contract to the end of the season. Save us, keep us up.
Could be. I think the issue, I guess, is that Marsch is he's not with a club anymore, so he can come whenever he wants. So that's the issue for that. So who knows?
I just think that a manager like Marsch is an ambitious recruitment choice. I think it's a great choice, but he's not going to have the time to get the players playing the way he wants. So a lot of the time, what you often have when you see a new manager come in is a kind of limbo state where they adopt some part of the new tactics and formation that the new manager wants to play, but a lot of the other stuff is still kind of ingrained and takes a longer time. And in those limbo games, you get to see a lot of mistakes happening, goals conceded. I don't think Leeds have the grace period they can't afford to lose a couple of games to get it right. Do you know what I mean?
But I just also think that it'd be interesting whether the limbo period could work well, because if they did a Hodgson and it's the defensive stuff they need to tighten up, then who knows? If they kept the pressing and the intensity from Bielsa, but maybe solidified up at the back a bit, that could actually save them and could be working well for them. But I just think with the injuries that they're having and mistakes are prone, it's going to be very scary for them, and it's a very scary time if you're a Leeds fan. Quickly shout out because I don't think we've mentioned it yet since he's had a game. But speaking of Brentford, it's really nice to see Christian Eriksen back on the pitch and playing football again. So that's a bit of a nice story there. Unless you've got anything else to say on the relegation battle, we will move on to our final subject.
No, I mean, to be fair, we did talk about it quite a length last week.
Yeah,
as well,
I think it's probably going to be a segment we're going to be talking about every week, and we'll keep it short, just because, as you said, it is the most fascinating bit. Exactly,
absolutely riveting.
I think everyone knows the top two clubs in England at the moment. Yes, there's a few debates on top four. I think third place is safe, so it's fourth place and relegation. That's the exciting ones at the moment in terms of the Prem. So the last topic we want to talk about is actually a bit more of a heavy hitting subject. So I'm going to put this out there. If you don't want to hear about this subject, then I suggest you stop listening now, or you click off the video if it's not something that you want to hear about or don't want to get involved. We're going to try not to talk too politically about it. I'm sure we can guess what we're talking about right now, but we're going to try and keep it to kind of football and sporting terms. But what we're going to be talking about is the situation in Ukraine and what's happening with Russia and Ukraine at the moment. So yeah, I mean, do you want to start on this one? And I've got a few points down on this, and we'll just kind of keep it fairly football and sport related, and just talk about some points that have happened and how it's affected stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a deplorable situation, whichever way you cut it. And I think that as part of the kind of sanctions that you need to put in place in order to de-escalate the situation, you can't ignore sport. You can't give essentially a free pass on things. And I'll start off by saying at no point am I saying any Russian teams in any sport, or in fact any Russian civilians have any say on what's happening in Ukraine, and they should not be held accountable personally. But the idea here is in a country where media is often twisted, when it's fed back to the everyday citizens, you need to make as many kind of impacts as possible, things that will get through that kind of media barrier. And this is one of the ways of doing it. And I think, if anything, I think a lot of governing bodies acted a bit too slowly.
Yeah, I agree.
To get this done. So obviously we're talking about restrictions so originally I think FIFA said that Russian national team could participate, but without the name, the badge, the flag, or national anthem, or anything like that. Now they're saying that they can't. A lot of the Champions League games they cancelled.
Well, and they're I think some of the matches are in discussion at the moment. I don't think the Champions League was sorted what's going to happen just yet, but they're obviously looking to, as they should be, moving the final out of Russia.
Absolutely.
The FA have confirmed England won't play against Russia, and Poland were basically the first people that kicked it off before the bodies acted properly, saying that they won't be playing against them. And now obviously UEFA's come out and said that FIFA and UEFA suspended all Russian clubs and national teams from all competitions. So that is including.
I think so. I think Sweden were the first team to come out because they were possibly there was obviously talk about them possibly losing
them and Poland,
the qualifiers, using a qualifying space by not playing the game, and they were obviously
Sweden and Poland they've basically been told they'd be given the game in that group, and that is the way it is. But it's a shame that the countries had to put their necks on the line in a sense first before the bodies actually acted, because I think we all knew that was the correct thing to do. But I applaud everyone that has been doing it. I applaud everyone that even the applause and recognition at the cup game on the weekend, and we've seen some lovely scenes at West Ham with people coming together, and that's the kind of stuff you want to be seeing, and promoting the message of no war, and pointing out what exactly is going on right now. The interesting one as well, and again, rightly so in my opinion, because again, it's freezing the assets, is UEFA has actually decided to end its partnership with Gazprom, who have been a sponsor for a very, very long time. It's a bit of football kind of fact trivia, which is always kind of linked with that company. But again, it's part of it, of the sanctions of putting it together. I think before we get onto kind of the Chelsea's topic, I just wanted to say as well, I think we're both in agreement. We didn't kind of discuss this beforehand, but I think we're both in agreement that yes, it is something that has to be done, and yes, it's very unfortunate for those Russian sports personnel, whether that's the upcoming Paralympics, who are literally, I think they're flying to Beijing now. And all the teams, doesn't matter that's football or whatever it is, that are going to be hit by this. But unfortunately, we don't know your views and that kind of stuff. And it is harsh that you might have worked for 4 years of your life to get what you want to into the Olympics. But something has to be done, and a stand has to be taken. And I think that's it's a harsh reality that we're into right now.
I mean, absolutely right. There's a few little bits that I saw just before we started recording this. So Adidas have pulled any sponsorship from Russia, which is massive. Adidas, obviously, I think probably the second biggest sporting apparel retailers in the world.
They're big in Russia too.
Massive in Russia. Yeah. We've all seen the pictures of the Russian gangsters in the tracksuits and whatnot. The second thing I saw was a lot of you football fans out there will be very familiar with the Live Score app. Live Score will no longer be showing any or tracking any Russian football.
Oh, interesting idea. I didn't see that one.
So that's been removed. That happened literally just before we recorded. And the other thing, which I think is a little bit strange, is tomorrow night's Southampton game versus West Ham. We requested to the FA that we'd play in yellow and blue in our away kit. And that request was denied.
I didn't know about that as well, and that's outrageous. If it's not breaking any rules and you're not clashing, which you're clearly not in those kits, I'm assuming it's West Ham home in claret and blue.
No, it's Southampton at home.
Oh,
I can't for the life of me remember what West Ham's away kit is, but if that's the case, why would you not just allow West Ham to play in the home kit? We requested specifically to play in yellow and blue so we could, honour Ukraine. Fortunately, we will be playing in yellow and blue on Saturday against Villa.
Yeah.
But I can't really understand why the FA wouldn't allow that as a little bit of
I don't understand that either, because surely you'd want as much kind of good publicity as they want, as there's so much kind of misinformation and wrongly used footage and stuff floating around at the moment. And kind of the last big subject, I mean, we could talk as much as you want about this on different points, but the last kind of big one, which was a very interesting development and still hasn't been fully resolved, as I kind of alluded to a second ago, is Chelsea is obviously Roman Abramovich is being kind of hit under sanctions. Again, it's not kind of fully decided what's happening with him yet in general. But he's kind of tried to put the running of Chelsea in the hands of the Chelsea Charitable Foundation. But again, they haven't confirmed that they're taking it from him yet either. So it's very up in the air of what's happening with Chelsea right now. But rightly so, if they're doing the sanctions and stopping all the millionaires and billionaires that Russia have and stuff, that's something can, you know, I'm not going to say anything either way. We know that Abramovich has had dealings with the Russian government over there in that sense, but he's also come out and said in the last few days that he's trying to help Ukraine. So I'm not judging a character. I'm not judging Roman Abramovich right now. I think, if anything, it's actually a very sensible decision for him to, you know, it's a club. Let's take the situation for a second out of the equation. He loves this club and he spent years building that club. So he wants what's best for the club. So he doesn't want the club hit by things that might happen to him personally because of his personal ties to it. It'd be interesting to see what happens in terms of what they're allowed to spend in the summer if things haven't been sorted with the situation. That's a whole different ballpark. But it's just a very interesting story, and if you're a Chelsea fan, I guess that's quite a worrying thing for you. But obviously I would hope that you realise that this is for it's the right thing to do, and hopefully well, the main message is hopefully this gets resolved as soon as possible. And obviously, we don't want any more deaths, we don't want any more injuries, and we don't want another country being forcibly invaded by another country and having their people of that country having to become refugees and fleeing from the country. I think that's kind of the overall message. What we wanted to. It was such a big topic. We try to stay away from politics and stuff like that as much as we can. This podcast is about sport and it's about football. But when something like this in the world happens, you can't turn a blind eye. And we wanted to tackle this subject. And just kind of talk about the stories about it, but also again, it's doing the very small thing we are, but bringing awareness to it, and doing what we can, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I need to add anything to that, mate. I think that was well put.
Yeah. So by all means, the only other thing I was going to say, I haven't got any links, not going to put any affiliation links to anything in there. But if you do want to help out in a way, I know that local supermarkets are doing donations. You want to go to a charity, please always check what you're donating to. There's been lots of misinformation, video game footage news going around on Twitter to show what, stuff like that. So please check what you're donating to. But if you want to, please, it's a very, very good cause. And we hope that there is no more war, which is what this episode will be titled, and the thumbnail will be the Ukrainian flag to show our support from Community FC for what's happening. So it's a bit of a bummer to end on, but it's an important thing to end on, regardless of the mood. So we wanted to touch on that. But yeah, some interesting topics we've talked about tonight, especially with some controversy stuff. And as I said, we're going to be hearing about them, and you're going to, every time you see a game, especially for that Everton City one, you're going to be thinking about that for the rest of the season to come. Kind of first silverware the season one for Liverpool. Let's see what they can do and kick on for the others. But that's really been it. So I'd like to thank you for coming on for always, Rich.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'd just like to ask if anyone out there, is listening or watching us, and you have a topic that you think would be good for us to discuss, please leave a comment on the YouTube video. Get in touch with us on Twitter at Community FC Podcast, and let us know, because we'd love more topics. We'd love more interaction from you, our audience, as well. So that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that subject as well, if you like this content, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe if you want to see more content from us. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified every time we go live. And as we keep saying, we will do. We are now on Spotify. So if you like to listen to it and that's your preferred kind of medium to get this content, then we're on there. And if you do, don't forget to give us a follow and rate us 5 stars. That really helps us out and kind of pushes us out and gets more people to listen to Community FC. But that's been about it. I'm going to kind of wrap it up now. I'm hoping that Veghorst is going to get me some points as my captain. We will see. But I hope everyone enjoys watching some football this weekend. I hope the situation in Ukraine is much better by the time we have the next episode. And we'll catch you all very, very soon for the next episode.